in October of 2011, I was going in for a routine checkup, like I always do. And my doctor called me about an hour and a half later and said that there was something wrong with my blood work, and he needed me to come back in and have it retested. I told him I was actually in the emergency room. He kind of freaked out and asked me why. And I told him I was actually there to pick up a foster child of mine who was there. He asked me, was there any nurses around? And I said, yeah, I'm in the ER. I think there's plenty. And so I handed the phone to the nurse. The nurse looked up at me after he said something to her, and she went and got a doctor. And then about 5 minutes later, Dr. Jackson came walking down the hallway. She put her hand on my shoulder and she said, I need you to go sign in. So I went to the front desk and signed in, and I kept asking her, what was going on. She said as soon as we got to a room, she would let me know something. So I called my husband, told him I think I needed him to come because there was obviously something wrong. We went in the room, and she told me that she thought I had leukemia. And so we kind of reveled in that for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then she told me I had to go to treatment. And I said, okay, well, we'll think about it and let you know where I want to go. And she said, no, I mean tonight. You have to leave tonight. And the type of leukemia we think you have, only a couple of places will even treat that. So you can go to Duke, you can go to Chapel Hill, or you can go to Pitt. Your transport is on the way. By the time they get here, you need to let them know where you want to be taken. So I called a girlfriend of mine and asked her to go get the children from school so that I could see them and at least kind of let them know what was going on. And so off I went to Pitt. I started chemo the very next day. That was in October. I came home in March. Everything was fine, March and April. In May, I started training for the MS 200 ride in New Bern. That was something that we wanted to do. And typically I rode by myself, but one day my husband said, well, I'm going to ride with you. And I was like, no, you're going to mess up my pace. Don't worry about it. And he says, no, I'm just going to ride with you because I need to start training as well.
My mom suffers from MS, so we thought it would be a great thing that year for us to actually buy some bikes and join in ourselves. She kind of got a head start on me by a few days with her bicycle, so I decided that day it was my turn to start. And after going back and forth for about 15 minutes, she decided to let me join in. And we headed off, and everything was fine, and we reached the stop sign at the top of our subdivision. And as we made the right onto the main highway, we were in the middle of a conversation, and she never said anything. And when I looked over, she had slumped over on her bike and was actually falling over on her bike. At that point, I jumped off my bike and ran over. There was a kid who was standing outside. He saw it happen, and he called 911. What looked like a seizure to me at that time, he brought the phone to me, and the operator wanted to know what I was seeing and what was going on, and I explained to her what I thought was going on. She told me that EMS was on the way.
They called the rescue squad, Township 7, which I owe so much to. One of their first responders was at church up the street. His name is Kenny, what was his name?
I do not know his last name.
Kenny something or other from New Bern. He is a first responder. He was there within 3 minutes of the call.
He got out and immediately assessed that probably what she needed was CPR. So he started performing CPR, and I assisted him with that until EMS got there. They got there about 2 minutes after he did and used the defib device to bring her heart rate back, because at that point they had determined she had actually stopped breathing, her heart had stopped, and her pulse was very shallow. From there, they took her to Craven, and I spoke with a few doctors there, and they were trying to determine if it was a seizure or if it was an actual cardiac arrest. At that point, they didn't know, but what they did know is they wanted to keep her sedated until they could figure it out. Vidant then requested that they have her airlifted there to their facilities. And that's where I met with the doctors there at Vidant. And they induced her to a what they call it, medical coma. They hooked her up to a machine, and they kept her body temperature very low to to keep her heart from swelling and to keep her brain from swelling. And they told me they were going to do that for about 36 hours. And then they would turn that machine off and allow her body temperature to come back to normal. And then they would determine then if they saw any brain activity, if she was actually alive, or if they thought that that she was brain dead from the event that occurred. So a lot of prayer, a couple of sleepless nights. I came home on a Friday, and when I was here, the nurse that had been watching over her called me, or she had been trying to reach me nonstop. And she called me just as I was pulling the hospital parking lot to tell me that she had turned the machine off about 6 hours ahead of time because she noticed that Ericka, her body was starting to fight against the machine, which they thought was a good sign. So she did that. And as I was standing there talking to her doctors, which was maybe about 20 minutes after that phone call, she opened her eyes. And
I woke up in the hospital room, and I wasn't sure why I was there, and I kind of looked around for a while. Everything was kind of dark, and I was like, what is going on? And I saw my husband sitting over on the side, and I said, what happened? And he said, well, you fell off your bike. And I said, well, is my bike okay? Because we had spent, a pretty good amount of time and finances into getting both of ourselves bike ready. And he said, oh yeah, the bike is fine, but your heart apparently stopped. And I said, well, how does that happen? He says, well, we're still trying to figure out how that happened, but apparently your heart actually stopped. And you've been out for several days. And so I asked him what day it was, and he told me, and I don't think my brain just couldn't wrap around that. I don't know whether I was still foggy from the sedation or, just not wanting to accept the fact that I had fallen off the bike. And I asked him about my oncologist, who had been following me for about a year, asked had he come up and kind of seen what was going on. And he said, yeah, his name is Dr. Ash. And he came up and he spoke to us, and just kind of told me that my heart had stopped. They are thinking maybe it was because of the chemotherapy I was treated with. I had a very rare type of leukemia, and they treat that rare type of leukemia with arsenic. It's the only type of leukemia that they treat with arsenic. So for 12 weeks, I had pure arsenic trioxide injected into my chemotherapy port, and that has been known to cause QT prolongation and other heart arrhythmias. So they think that my electrolytes plummeted because of the fact that I had so much arsenic, and my heart just couldn't process, pumping blood anymore. So I was there. Then they told me they had decided to put in an ICD. I had no idea what an ICD was. They said it's kind of like a pacemaker on steroids. It can pace, and if my heart needed it, it would actually shock me just like an external defibrillator. I don't really think I had a choice in the matter. I think it was one of those, this is what we've decided is medically necessary, and this is what we're going to do. And so they did, and then they brought me all the information about what the device does and how big it is, and what the treatment is it for, and how long it stays in, and things like that. So it took a while for me to get used to the fact that I have something that reminds me of Iron Man implanted in my chest, and the fact that if I went into a rhythm, unbeknownst to myself, it could shock me anytime, anywhere, doing anything. It would shock me. I was very uncomfortable with that, but Dr. Krieger, who's one of the top cardiologists in the state, assured me that most people would rather have an ICD implanted already, so that if their heart went into a rhythm, that the ICD could shock them versus having to wait for EMS or someone else to respond. And because they weren't real sure what caused it, they felt that that was the safest option. So if I never need it, great. But if I need it, it's there, kind of like an onboard paramedic. The doctors have assured me that my heart was not damaged. There's no blockage. There's nothing there. They really believed it was just a one-time incident. And then in October, while attending a wedding in Myrtle Beach, my defibrillator actually shocked me. clear out of nowhere. We were getting ready to sit down in our seats, and I kind of jolted a little bit, and I said, I think I just got shocked. The crazy thing is I wasn't really sure if I had gotten shocked. It happened so quickly. I sat down for a while. I told my husband I thought I just got shocked. My brother was actually walking next to me. He said he heard it. It sounded like someone's phone on vibrate. And so we kind of sat for a while, and all I kept telling myself was, Lord, please don't let me ruin my little cousin's day by falling out of this chair, causing a scene. We made it through the wedding. We kind of sat down for a while, and I called my cardiologist, told him that I had just gotten shocked, and he asked me how many times, and I said, well, one's enough. And he said, well, if you only got shocked once and you feel fine, then, that's what the device is there for. So I was like, well, okay. For the next 2 weeks, my mind was just covered with, oh my God, something's wrong, the device is misfiring, or, I almost died or something. About 2 weeks after that, I had a panic attack, which I thought was another ICD, or what they call ICD storm, which is when your ICD shocks you over and over and over and over again. I asked my husband to take me to Vidant. By the time we got to the hospital, though, I felt fine, so I didn't go in, and we drove back home to New Bern, which is about an hour and 15 minutes. About 30 minutes after we got home, I had that same feeling again. I said, no, there's something wrong. We went back to Carolina East, to the ER department. They did some blood tests. They realized that my levels were raised. So they gave me a nitroglycerin patch and said, we're sending you back to Vidant because that's where your doctors are. I got there. They did the test. They did confirm that earlier that month in October, I actually was shocked. It was an actual heart arrhythmia. They think that my heart would have come out of it on its own, but the device is there, it responds within 5 seconds. That's what it's there to do, so it shocked me. They said that my levels were raised because of the fact that I had gotten shocked in less than 14 days. Your levels don't go down immediately. And they determined that it was pretty much a post-traumatic stress type of event, that my mind had caused my body to think that I was being shocked over and over again, when in fact my device had not fired more than that one time 2 weeks before. I stayed in the hospital about 2 or 3 days. They told me to kind of chill out, go talk to somebody, get some therapy, actually get some feelings out and talk about it. There were more people with ICDs that had these types of psychological damages, and that it was very important for us to develop some sort of support group so that we could kind of get the help we needed without thinking that my device is going to shock me every day. So I did. I started attending a group called ICD Tips, which is like an online therapy group for people who have ICD defibrillators planted inside of them. And it was very beneficial. They teach you coping skills and relaxation techniques and things like that. And also you can email them or call them if you actually needed something, versus going to an actual therapist once or twice a week, because they feel that most of them it's mental. It's one of those, you have this thing in your chest and it's going to shock you.
Oh, sure.
And so after talking to them, I figured out some ways to kind of help her alleviate some of those stresses, because we don't want the device repeatedly going off. It's there to save her life, but if we can prevent it from going off purposely, then we want to try and stop that. And so, and talking with the doctors again, we kind of came up with a plan. Part of that is therapy. A lot of that also is some simple exercise, getting out of the house, just going for a weekend drive somewhere, family game night, movies, basically anything that we think that she enjoys. But it's also beneficial to the rest of us too. I think it all has helped us. Would you say just lighten up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think the biggest thing that I can take away from all of the experiences that I've had in the last 2 years is that my doctors are real people. They have real lives. They actually care about their patients. At first I thought they were just, people running around in white coats writing prescriptions. But if I would go to the hospital because, I was hurt or, something totally unrelated to cancer, my oncologist always, always, always made it a point to come up and see me or call or do both. When I go for my checkups, my cardiologist will call over and say, hey, how's the blood work looking? Or, hey, can you stop by here and, let's chat for a little bit. Let's make sure everything is going well. When I was doing cardiac rehab, which is an absolutely fabulous program, my doctors would call once or twice a week to check on my progress, to make sure that I was actually pushing my heart outside of what they typically see for an ICD patient, because most ICD patients are 60 or above. And when you have someone like me who's in their 30s, who is prior service and likes to bike and likes to swim and likes to run and do marathons and has two very active children who run about in sports and do all kinds of stuff, they wanted to make sure that I didn't stop living because I had an ICD place. They wanted me to be able to take part in the things that I took part in before. They just wanted to make sure I could do it safely. So they would call and say, hey, how hard did you push your heart today? How did it feel? Did you feel out of breath? Were you able to handle it? All right, well, let's go up another, 5 or 6 beats, next time, and let's see, how we can make sure that you're safe, make sure that that you're safe, make sure that your device is there for the right reasons, but that you don't stop living because of this incident. For those people who helped me on my journey, the EMS workers that picked me up that one day off the ground, down to all the doctors and the nurses, all the workers at the hospital, my cardiologist, my oncologist, all the rest of the ologists that were involved in my journey. I would say thank you for all of your hard work and dedication. It could have been that one day where that EMS worker, Kenny, could have been in church, which he was, and just said, I'm not going to go to that call. I'll let somebody else get it. If he hadn't stopped what he was doing in his personal life away from his family to come and see about me and my family, I certainly wouldn't be here. They said if they didn't respond in the first 5 minutes, I probably wouldn't be here. I think that people should not take for granted the fact that you have a wellness benefit on your health insurance. Had I not been using that wellness benefit and not gone into the doctors to start with, I wouldn't have known that I'd even had the first problem. And had I not gone in to be checked, periodically, they wouldn't have known what my baseline was, so they wouldn't have known, if something was wrong. I would say if you're feeling tired or unhealthy, or you feel like you've gained an extra 20 or 30 pounds in a short amount of time and you think something's wrong, then go and check. It's better to go and check and them tell you, no, everything's fine, you just need to lose a little weight, versus not going to check. The biggest advice I would give about life is don't take anything for granted. You never know what's going to happen from day to day. So when you get up in the morning and as you go out through your day, try to make the best decisions you can, impact people's life for the positive. Love your children, love your family. Just live life and be happy and take care of yourself.